My soul cries out, my soul cries out for you. These bones cry out, these dry bones cry for you to live and move, 'cause only you can raise the dead, can lift my head up. My soul cries out, my soul cries out for you. And Jesus, you're the one who saves us, constantly creates us into something new. Jesus, surely you will find us, surely a Messiah will make all things new, will make all things new. My soul cries out, my soul cries out for you. These bones cry out, these dry bones cry for you to live and move, 'cause only you can raise the dead, can lift my head up. Jesus, you're the one who saves us, constantly creates us into something new. Jesus, surely you will find us, surely your Messiah will make all things new, will make all things new. Life is breaking up, it's breaking up, it's breaking up. And life is breaking up, it's breaking up, it's breaking up. And love is breaking out, it's breaking out, it's breaking out. Oh, 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 oh. Jesus, you're the one who saves us, constantly creates us into
Brandon's shin wasn't even looking at what he was doing that whole time, which was kind of amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, you can be excited still. That's okay. Yeah, all right, we're getting excited. There we go. Hey, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you turn to the person next to you, introduce yourself, and ask them what their favorite way to beat the heat is.
Favorite ways to what? I guess that extra 15 minutes per hour.
All right. What's yours? Don't worry about it. All right. Who here chose some form of pool gathering? I guess that's just me. Jasmine, right? Well, hey, we are so glad that you are here with us at Paradox. We are just so glad that you're here with us on this Saturday morning. We are very excited because the one and only Peter Rollins is in the house this morning as our guest teacher. Woo! And a couple announcements. The first one is this. Next week, we start a series in the book of Proverbs, and we just would love for you to join us for that. We'll go for 6 weeks, and we'd love for you to be part of it. At this time, we're going to talk a little bit about liturgy. We're going to try something new today. We're going to talk about prayer, because prayer is one of the most common practices that we have as spiritual people, as people of Christian faith. And when we talk about prayer, the fact is churches often talk about answered prayers. But the truth is we live with answered and unanswered prayers. And so when we think about our answered prayers and our unanswered prayers, it's important for us to think about what songs we sing that reflect both of those realities that we live with. One of the things that I love about the Psalms is the fact that there is a lament next to a psalm of praise, one that says that I don't feel that God is present, next to one that says that I understand that God is right next to me. And so these next two songs are songs about, the first song is about a song about answered prayers, and the second song is a song of unanswered prayers. So we invite you to think about the songs and the prayers in your lives that are answered as well as unanswered as we sing these two songs.
Father, you always amaze me. Let your kingdom come in my world, in my life. Give me the food I need to live through the day. And forgive me as I forgive people that wrong me. Lead me far from temptation, deliver me from the evil one. Look out the window, birds are composing. Out of tune, out of place. Walk to the meadow and stare at the flowers. Better dressed than any girl on her wedding day. So why should I worry? Why do I freak out? God knows what I need. You know what I need. yourself to buy the one you found. Two things you told me, that you are strong and you love me. Yes, you love me. Your love is, your love is, your love is strong. Your love is, your love is, your love is strong. Your love is, your love is, your love is strong. Your love is, your love is, your love is strong. Our God in heaven, hallowed be thy name above all names. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us weary sinners. Keep us far from our vices and deliver us from this prison. When the walls fell and the hungry child cried out for help, did you hear the sound? Did your heart break? Does your heart break now? Sing this out together. Cannot feel it in my soul. Cannot see you. I'm alone. Can the blind have sight? Have sight. When you see us all alone, can you hear your people low? Can the blind have sight? Have sight. When the man said, you are choking me, and he cried out, I cannot breathe. Did your heart break? Does your heart break now? Does your heart break? Does your heart break? Does your heart break when the heart breaks? Does your heart break?
Will you bow your heads with me? Dear Lord, thank you for being a God who is with us in our answered prayers and in our unanswered prayers, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much to the wonderful band for a moving praise service. We appreciate that. At this time, we're going to invite our children's ministry to go to the back. They have crafts and they have games and all sorts of activities. If you'd like your kid to go back with them, you can sign them up in the back and just follow them out, and they would do that. So we're just so grateful for a fantastic kids ministry here at Paradox. While they are leaving, I have the privilege and honor of introducing our speaker for today, Peter Rollins. And the way that we introduce speakers here at Paradox is we write a letter. So I've written you a letter, Peter, and it goes like this. Dear Peter, just over 3 years ago, I invited you to speak at my previous church for our young adult service, Shadow Ministries. You graciously accepted this invitation and arrived at our worship service on a June morning where you delivered a sermon abounding with laughter, questions, and honesty. A few days later, we reconnected at a Rob Bell event in Laguna. Over coffee, we talked about the delicate balance of faith and employment. You expressed a lot of positive sentiments about our young adult group, but you were also concerned for me. This concern stemmed from the feeling that I was flying a little too close to the sun with the authenticity I was sharing from the pulpit. You encouraged this authenticity, but toward the end of this conversation, you shared some advice with me. You said, Craig, make sure that you have a backup plan. Well, Peter, welcome to the backup plan. This backup plan is named Paradox Church, and the congregation thrives in the uncertainty of the human experience. Often when I speak to the people of Paradox, I ask them what they enjoy about this church, and the number one thing I hear is that this church talks about things that are difficult to talk about. The ability to talk about these difficult things is greatly influenced by your work. From your books to your teachings to your speaking workshops, your work pushes this community and me to give space to the mysteries of our faith, to give equal recognition to answered prayers and unanswered prayers, to celebrate the full presence and the empty absence of God on Easter weekend, and to embrace the paradox that God is where God should not be. So thank you, and again, thank you for the beauty of your work. It is an honor to have you here with us today at the Backup Plan. Please join me in giving a warm and raucous welcome to the one and only Peter Rollins.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's great to be back. I didn't recognize the place because you've moved since I was last here a few years ago. I actually haven't been doing very many events like this. Recently, I've been traveling a lot, but when Craig contacted me, I was very excited about doing it. I feel like I've got a connection with this community. I love what you're doing. And also then Craig tempted me with a really interesting theme. I did a festival on the work of C.S. Lewis back in Ireland last year, and he said, it'd be great if you would come along and do something about Lewis. And so that's what I'm here to do. Just as a little bit of background, not many people know this, but C.S. Lewis was from Belfast, where I'm from. Everyone associates him with England and with Oxford and Cambridge, but he was actually born in Belfast, just 2 minutes walk from where I was born. I was baptized in the same church he was baptized in. We briefly went to the same school, not at the same time. And, so there's always been this little connection and interest in Lewis. And last year, I was at one of my favorite places in the world, this beautiful little town called Crawfordsburn. If you're ever in Ireland, you should go there. You Americans always go to the south of Ireland. You always go to Dublin or Galway or Cork, and they're beautiful, but you miss out on the north of Ireland. The north of Ireland, Northern Ireland's very beautiful too. Belfast, some of you will be old enough to remember that it was a pretty violent place for a while, but it's this bustling, beautiful city. And Crawfordsburn is this stunning little picturesque Irish town, just about 15 minutes outside the city. And it's actually where C.S. Lewis spent a lot of time. He even had his honeymoon there with Joy. And the forest at Crawfordsburn is one of the inspirations for Narnia. So when you're there at this beautiful little inn that bleeds onto this stunning forest, you feel like you're in Narnia. It's magical. The forest then bleeds into the ocean, and there's a beautiful beach. And so every year I do a retreat there now, and the very first one was on the work of Lewis. And, you know, some people love Lewis, some people hate Lewis. I was really interested in just having an event where we had comedy and music and thinkers coming together to wrestle with this figure. See if there's anything that we can bring out of Lewis's writing that can inspire us, challenge us, maybe have something to say in the contemporary world. And while I was reading everything of Lewis in preparation for this event, I came across this short story that he wrote that was originally called The Man Born Blind, and then was renamed Light. And what's interesting about this short story is that it was one of the first things that C.S. Lewis ever wrote. One of the first things. So it's called the first story, but it's also called the last story he ever wrote, because he returned to it at the end of his life. He edited it, and he never published it. And interestingly, it took 2 decades before it was published, 20 years after he died. So this is quite amazing. It's like, you know, finding a single from like Jimi Hendrix, something like that. It's like this, oh my goodness, 20 years after he's dead, this story appears. So it's probably a story, even if you're Lewis fans, that you'll never have heard, that you'll not know about. And what interests me about it is that it's very un-Lewis. It sounds more like something Jean-Paul Sartre or Camus would have written. So it feels very existential. It's quite dark. And so I want to read it to you. It'll only take maybe 8 minutes to read. And then I want to dissect it for you. And I'll do an interpretation. And I want to also connect it with what you're doing here at Paradox. And then if anyone's interested, we can talk about it a little bit more at the end. I'm taking the short story from this book, Light. It's a terrible cover. It looks like a teenage kind of like Twilight series or something. It's awful. It actually stopped me from buying the book. You never judge a book by its cover, but I do. I don't like buying books that look this bad. But it's the only book I could find with it in it. But it's actually a very good book that looks into a little bit of the background to it. I won't say too much about that, but I'll say one thing. One of Lewis's best friends was called Owen Barfield. And he was an anthroposophist, if you know, so it's kind of like interested in Rudolf Steiner and that kind of thinking. And he called, I can't remember exactly the term he used, but he says there's 2 types of best friends. He says there's the type of best friend that you meet, you know, at a party, and you're sitting and you're talking, and you share all the kind of same opinions. You're like, oh, you love that movie, you love that book, and you feel like kindred spirits. You feel like you're understood by them and they are understood by you. He says that's a beautiful type of friendship. And then he says there's a second type of friendship. And the second type of friendship is different. He says it's like, yes, you've read all the same stuff, you've watched all the same things, but the other person has come to all the wrong conclusions. They're completely wrong about everything. And they think the same about you. And so that type of friendship is a friendship that is forged in the fires of conflict and discussion and argument. And he said Barfield was the second. And they called it the Great War because he was always warring with Barfield. And this short story can be seen as a critique of Barfield. But I'm not going to get into that in any depth. I just wanted to give you that background. So this is called Light. And there are 3 principal characters. I mean, you could say there's 4, actually. You could say Light is a character in the book. And then there is Robin. And Robin is a man who was born blind. But then he had an operation so he could see. And then Anne is his wife. And there is a painter who's unnamed. So there's Robin, the protagonist, who's born blind. There is Anne, his wife, and there is this painter. Here we go. Bless us, said Anne. There's 11 o'clock already, and you're nearly asleep, Robin. She rose with a bustle of familiar noises, bundling her spools and her little cardboard boxes into the work basket. Come on, lazy bones, she added. You want to be nice and fresh for your first walk tomorrow. That reminds me, said Robin, and then stopped. He had approached the subject 3 times already since his operation. Once to the doctor, once to the nurse, and once before to Anne herself. And each time, something seemed to have gone wrong. Now he felt unreasonably nervous. I suppose, he mumbled, I suppose there'll be lots of light out there when we go for that walk tomorrow. You mean that it will be lighter out of doors? Well, yes, of course. But I must say, I always felt that this was a very light house. This room now, we've had the sun in it all afternoon. The sun makes it hot, doesn't it? Said Robin tentatively. What are you talking about? Said Anne. That was what Robin couldn't understand. Why they all sounded so angry or frightened whenever he got near to the real question. It was as if they thought he was mad. I mean, he said, well, look here, dear. I've been wanting to ask you something ever since I got back from the nursing home. I expect it will sound silly to you, but things must be different to a chap who's been blind all his life, mustn't they? It's all so new to me. As soon as I heard there was a chance of getting my sight, well, I looked forward. The last thing I thought before the operation was light, wondering what it would be like. Then all these days afterwards, before they took the bandages off, wondering about the light. But of course, darling, that's only natural. Then, his voice shook a little. Then why don't I mean, where is the light? His 3 weeks of sight had not taught him yet how to read the expression of her face, but he knew by her voice the warm wave of muddled, frightened affection that had swelled up in her as she said, why don't we go to bed now, dearest? We can talk about all that stuff in the morning. You know you're tired now. No, he said. I've got to have this out. You've got to tell me. Don't you want me to know? Know about what, Robin? Ask me anything you like, said Anne. But there's nothing to worry about. Your sight is perfectly all right now. You're cured. Very well, then. Let me ask you this. Is there light in this room at present? Of course there is, Robin. Well, then where is it? Why, it's all around us. Well, can you see it? Yes, but really, Robin, dear. Well, then why can't I? But Robin, you can. You can see me, can't you? And the mantelpiece, and the table, and, well, that's it. That's what drives me mad. That's the sort of thing you all say. I want to see light. Are you light? Is the mantelpiece light? Is light only another name for all other things? Oh, said Anne, I see what you mean. You're asking about the light. That's it there, hanging from the ceiling with the pink shade. Then why did you tell me that the light was all around us? Well, darling, I mean, that's what gives the light. The light comes from there. Well, then where is the light itself? You see, you won't say. Nobody will say. You tell me there's the light here, and there's the light there, and this is in the light, and that's in the light. But you won't point out the light itself. If none of you know what light is, just say so. If there's no such thing, if it was all just a fairy tale all along, then say so. If the operation was a failure and I still can't see what other people see, then just tell me. I can take it. It's the secrecy that I can't stand. You're all like conspirators. Why the devil? Well, at that point, Anne began to cry, and Robin apologized. It's a well-timed crying there. That's very good. Thank you. And Robin apologized and comforted her. And then they went to bed. This conversation made him all the more cautious. Clearly, it was never going to be any use asking about the light. Either there was no such thing, or else he was all the time making some appalling mistake. If he was not careful, he'd find himself in the hands of the doctors again. Psychotherapists probably this time, right? When Anne took him out for his walk the next day, he was on his guard. He kept on saying, "It's lovely, all lovely, just let me drink it in." And that satisfied her. And he knew enough now to know that none of the things he saw could possibly be light. They were, as Anne explained to him, only fields or cows or grass or the sun or trees or a quarry. Nothing could be attempted until he was able to go for walks on his own. Well, about 6 weeks went by before he first did so. During that time, he had passed every fluctuation of hope and despair. But the steady trend of his feelings was towards an increasing and presently a tormenting desire. He no longer concealed from himself the fact that the visible world was, well, just a disappointment. He realized that he had never really wanted it, except for the sake of light. And that unless somewhere amongst them he could find that pure stream and bathe his eyes in it and drink it in, all the clouds and colors and animals and what Anne called the views were of no account. One morning, when he first went out alone, there was a mist. But he had met mists before, and this did not trouble him. He walked out over the railway bridge and up the steep hill, and then along the field path that skirted the lip of the quarry. Anne had taken him there a few days before to show him the view. She had said, "What a lovely light there is on the hills over there." Now that clue was the very thing he was following now, though with very faint hope. He was almost certain by now that she knew no more about light than he did. He was beginning to suspect that most of the unblind were in the same position as him. What one heard among them was probably mere parrot-like repetition of a rumor concerning something which the very few, the great poets perhaps, the prophets, had really seen and known. Somewhere it must exist, perhaps not in England, perhaps only in rare deposits of it existed far away to the east in deserts or perhaps in high mountains. In that case, he would never see it. But if he did, if he did, he would dive into its very heart, give all of himself away to it, drink, 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 till he died drinking. The mist thinned rapidly. Trees brightened out of it. Birds began singing. He found he was hot. His shadow lay before him, each moment blacker and more distinct. That violent yellow thing, the sun, which one could never see properly, stared at him on his left hand. He pulled the brim of his hat lower over his eyes, blinking. "If only I could see any light," he muttered. Well, at that moment, he caught sight of a young man who was standing with his legs wide apart on the edge of the cliff, singing and making jabs with some slender instrument, as if at a complicated two-legged object about the same height as himself. If Robin had had more experience, he would have recognized this as a canvas and an easel. As it was, his eyes and those of the wild-looking stranger met so unexpectedly that Robin blurted out, "What are you doing?" before he had time to be self-conscious. "Doing?" said the stranger with a certain light-hearted savagery. "Doing? Well, I'm trying to catch light, if you want to know." "Oh, so am I," said Robin. "Oh, you know it too then, do you?" said the man. Then almost vindictively, "They're all fools, you know. How many come out to paint on a day like this? How many will even see it if you show it to them? And yet, this is the only sort of day when you can actually see light, solid light, light you could drink in a cup or swim in. Look at it." He pointed out into the quarry. The fog was at death grips with the sun, but not a stone on the quarry floor was yet visible. The bath of vapor shone like white metal and unfolded itself in ever-widening spirals towards them. "Do you see that?" shouted the violent stranger. "There's light for you if you like it." Well, a second later, the expression on the painter's face changed. "Here," he cried, "are you mad?" The grab he made at Robin was too late. Already, the painter was alone again on the path. From a new made and rapidly vanishing rift in the fog beneath him, there came up no cry, but only a sound so sharp and definite that you would hardly expect it to have been made by the falling of anything so soft as a human body. That and the momentary rattling of a dislodged stone. Okay, so there you go. That is light, which is very dark. Basically, at the very end, he throws himself off the quarry and lands and dies. What is Lewis exploring in this story? Okay, I'll look at each of the three characters in turn. We'll start with Robin. And of course, the light is an analogy for something transcendent, some sort of otherness that grounds the world, what Paul Tillich, the theologian, would call the ground of being, right? So light is this type of transcendent kind of reality that is experienced and yet not directly felt. Now, Robin has a sense of this transcendental otherness, something that grounds everything but cannot be directly seen. So Robin has this yearning, this transcendental yearning, and he is dissatisfied by it. It rubs him up the wrong way. It gets under his skin. It makes him dissatisfied and not enjoying his life. And then you have Anne. And you could say that Anne here symbolizes a form of materialist, but a crude materialist. And by a crude materialist, I mean the position that there is no otherness, there is no transcendent reality, no ground of being. So for Anne, things are just the way they are, pure immanence. The world is the world. You get along with your daily concerns, your daily troubles. She doesn't even understand the question. She doesn't even understand what Robin means when he asks, what is the light? It's like, this is the light, that's the light. She doesn't have, or she hasn't cultivated this sense of transcendence. In fact, there's even, not only does she not understand the question, she gets annoyed by the question. The question frustrates her, almost unnerves her. Now, at this point, this is all very typical, right? Nothing of this is strange, especially if you know Lewis, and you go like, of course, you're going to have, a transcendental longing, and you have a character who doesn't think there's any longing. C.S. Lewis was very critical of certain forms of naturalism. Light is, of course, an analogy we all know of that connects with the transcendent. But it's the next bit that's more interesting, I think, and more initially surprising that it comes from Lewis. Because then you have the painter. So who is the painter? Well, in a sense, the painter is one who says they have the absolute. that they can reveal the absolute, that their canvas can express that transcendent. And it's not the naturalism of Anne that is ultimately the end of Robin. It is the claim of this man who is painting that he can express and show the absolute, that you can hold it in your hand, that you can have it, that you can know it. And that's why Robin dies. He then steps into the light in order to grasp it. The guy is pointing at it. Can you see it? There it is. You could drink it. You could walk in it. You could fall into it. And Robin does. He believes the painter. The painter doesn't even mean it in a sense, because that's the shock. Are you mad, right? But the painter, think of it like a pastor who is saying, you can know God, you can kind of know the transcendent, we have the truth, right? You're not supposed to believe it. You just said it's crazy when you believe it. This is called a form of psychic death. So, whenever a pastor says, if you have enough faith and don't doubt, you pray someone will be healed. You're not supposed to believe it. Whenever your kid's sick, you're supposed to call an ambulance, right? We all say we believe it. But it's the person who really, really believes it, takes seriously that, they're the one who potentially gets into real trouble, right? Because they experience this idea of the transcendent as absolutely graspable. And so there's this weird and interesting game that happens often within churches where things are said like, we rely on God for everything, but of course you've got a lightning rod in the steeple, right? So we know it's a game, but there's certain people who don't know it's a game, and that's very dangerous. This is the tyranny of certainty. Some people say to me, because I explore doubt in many ways in my work, and I explore kind of the potential of doubt and the various forms of doubt. Sometimes people say to me, well, not everyone has doubts. I'm like, yeah, no, some people have certainty, and that's even worse, right? If you think having doubts is bad, the certainty is awful, right? But if you meet someone who has certainty, and you'll meet them on the street. I met somebody a while back who believed that the CIA was had a tracker device in their teeth and was tracking them, and the dentist had put the tracking device in them, right? They were in a psychotic break, right? A psychotic break is the inability to doubt. And I don't know if you've had an experience of psychotic break yourself, or you know someone who has, but it is the tyranny of absolute certainty. You hear voices, and they're so in you that you can't distance yourself from them. So you can be the most intelligent person in the world, and in a psychotic break, you can't eat food that is green because that's what the FBI wants you to eat to poison you, whatever. This psychosis is a form of absolute certainty. And what C.S. Lewis seems to be saying here is that there is a form of death that comes from thinking that we can grasp the transcendent ground. So C.S. Lewis had a famous analogy. He said, God is to the universe like Shakespeare is to Hamlet, right? So in other words, you'll never find Shakespeare in the play of Hamlet, right? There's no Shakespeare in Hamlet at all, right? So if you're studying Hamlet just to find Shakespeare, you'll never find a character called Shakespeare. But Shakespeare is everywhere in Hamlet, because it comes from the mind of Shakespeare. So weirdly, you'll never find Shakespeare in the plays of Shakespeare, but when you give yourself over to reading Shakespeare's plays, he's everywhere. It's because it comes from his mind. So what Lewis is talking about here is the idea that you reduce the transcendent, this otherness, to something that is graspable. In the Bible, it's called idolatry. Idolatry comes from the term eidos. Eidos is where we get ideology as well. Ideology, an ideology in a sense is an attempt to explain complex reality, to give you an insight into the way things work. But ideology is, in philosophy, ideology is a cover. It is a kind of like a lie in the guise of truth. It simplifies things and ultimately lies about the true nature of reality. So an ideology and an idolatry is the same thing. Idolatry reducing God to something we can see, taste, touch, or feel. So what is C.S. And that's why he's critiquing Barfield, by the way, because he's critiquing anthroposophy, because anthroposophy is a form of Christian occultism where you kind of see behind the curtain. You know what's really going on. There's a certain kind of like we have the secret, and C.S. Lewis is kind of like critiquing that. So what's the alternative? And at this point, I'll put him down. The hapless Robin. What's the way out of this? On one side, there is, for C.S. Lewis, kind of a form of crude naturalism, materialism, where you just get rid of this transcendental longing because it's painful. You never get the answer. You just feel dissatisfied with everything. And then the other side, you have this type of answer, some community or some group saying, we have the secret, we have the insight, we are avatars of the absolute. We are the mouthpieces of the absolute of God, and the psychic death in that. Well, I think this is where C.S. Lewis's notion of joy comes into play. I think this is one of the most interesting parts of Lewis, actually, is how he defines joy. Joy is a type of taking pleasure in dissatisfaction, right? So joy is, think about it like waiting at Christmas, that you got a kid who's excited about the Christmas present, and it's painful. They can't fall asleep. They're upset. They get in the tantrums about what they're going to get or whatever. They're so excited, but there's a pleasure to it, right? You can see that they're enjoying it, and of course, it's so much better than the actual present. The present's going, as soon as you open it, it's gone, right? The real pleasure is in the dissatisfaction of the not getting, and the getting is, just goes. That's even with holidays. Whenever you're paying for a holiday, you're not paying for the holiday. You're paying for the fantasy that the holiday generates. That's why you shouldn't, book a holiday too quickly to when you leave, because you're not getting your money's worth, right? Your money. That's how, in analytic philosophy, this is one of the problems with the whole thing of playing the lottery, where you go like, is it rational to play the lottery? And you go, it's kind of mathematically not logical or rational. But most people, when they play the lottery, you're giving $1 not for the win. You're getting the $1 because the $1 allows you to generate a fantasy of what you would do if you had the money, right? The worst thing to do would be to win. As you know, most people who win lotteries are deeply depressed, and it's devastating to your lives, and people commit suicide, stuff like that. So actually what you're paying for is a fantasy. That's why, again, if you buy a lottery card, don't do it straight away. Keep it for a while. enjoy what you're actually paying for. And so, interestingly, what Robin has is he's not enjoying his dissatisfaction, and so much of us in daily life, it's the same thing. We are always pursuing something. We're dissatisfied in what we're doing, but only if we had enough money to get that house, if we had enough money to get rid of retirement, to move, to meet that person, to marry that person, to divorce that person, whatever it is, there's always, the pleasure is over there, and the dissatisfaction is the difficult bit. But there's this interesting thing, it's called the object cause of desire. By the way, if you have desire, then you crack it open, you find two parts of it. You find the object of desire and the object cause of desire. The object of desire is what you want, and the object cause of desire is what makes you want it, right? So I have a friend who wants to buy a house, and she loves going through all of the websites and visiting places. Now, in one sense, that's the obstacle. Having to go through all of these pages of houses and go and visit them and all of that. You think that's the obstacle to get to what you want. But actually, the problem is, once you get what you want, right, you get the house, you realize it's a bit boring, and actually what you enjoyed was all the running around looking for the house, right? That's actually where all the fun was, not in the actual getting of it. And this causes a really difficult problem. We're not happy when we don't have what we want, and we're even unhappier when we do. That's why, as human beings, we oscillate between two places, what's called depression and melancholy. Depression is the sadness of not getting what you want, and melancholy is the sadness of getting what you want. Right? So there you go. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. And by the way, just another example of this is that, here's a true example of two friends of mine who were married they'd been married for 10 years. And what happened is, in their relationship, there was no desire left. They weren't sleeping together. They were still friends, but there was a lack of desire in the relationship. That often happens. And eventually, the man, he has an affair, a brief affair. I'll call these people Jack and Jill, and the woman he has the affair with, Snow White, which is ironic because that's their real names. Right? So Jack and Jill, there's no real relationship there. Jack has this brief affair with Snow White. And the problem is, he's going like, I can't really be with you. I can't really be with you because I'm married, I have kids. I can't leave all of that. It's impossible. I would love to be with you, but my life circumstances mean that I can't, right? It's impossible. But very quickly, the affair is found out. And interestingly, it's found out so quickly that we could go into people's unconscious desires for these things to be found out. Anyway, it's found out, and okay, if we're an alien from outer space, we're looking at this. You're not a human being, you're an alien from outer space. You're looking at this, you're going, okay, well, here goes. They don't desire each other really much anymore. He's had this affair, so what's going to happen? Well, they're going to break up, and now he can be with Snow White because he wants to be with Snow White. I really want to be with you, but I can't. Well, now it's possible because she says, listen, you got to leave. This is no relationship. You got to get out. And he says, yes. He packs his bags, puts it in the car, says, we haven't really had a relationship for years. I'm leaving. But of course, that doesn't happen, right? 9 times out of 10, something very different happens, and this is what happens, right? He doesn't go with Snow White. He suddenly goes, that's the last thing I want. Oh my goodness, she's nuts. Imagine going out with her. That would be awful, right? Jill starts desiring Jack again. Jack starts desiring Jill again. 2 weeks later, they're sleeping together. They're planning a second honeymoon. They're going off to London to have a lovely little holiday, right? What is going on there? Even though they hate each other consciously, now they're sleeping together again, right? What is going on? Well, in this example, Jack is a typical obsessive, right? So he only desires what's impossible to get. It's the obstacle that makes Snow White desirable. He can't be with Snow White. She's the object of desire. The object cause of desire is his family. So when you take away the object cause of desire, you take away the object of desire. He no longer desires. Jill, in this example, is kind of what's called hysteric, but Jill can only really desire what is under threat of being taken away. So for Jill, Snow White is the object cause of desire, the very person who is potentially going to pull Jack away from her. And so then Jack is the object of desire. That's why some people think, they're jealous because they love that person so much. They desire that person so much. You're jealous because you desire this person. No. Often the only way you can desire somebody is to be jealous, right? So you have to, psychoanalytically, you have to be jealous in order to maintain your desire. There's an example of how it works. Of course, it's a bit of a problem. How do we get the two together? And you'll have to invite me back for that talk. It'll be twice as much, because that's so that's a question for another time because I have to finish up this. But object and object cause of desire. Now, what C.S. Lewis does is he does give a potential solution to this. Joy is where we see these two things as intertwined. We actually enjoy the unknowing. We make doubt into not something that is bad and destructive, but something that is powerful and good. We take the struggles of life, not all struggles, some struggles are horrible and terrible, but we find that there's actually this real joy in being in the world but not of it, of feeling out of place, of having to deal with this struggle, of feeling that we are immersed in something that we cannot grasp. This is a paradox. It's one of the definitions of paradox. And the idea of a community like this, I think, is threefold. Is one, to cultivate this transcendental longing, this being in the world but not of it, this experience of unknowing and of doubt, right? So one is to cultivate that. 2 is to mobilize it and enjoy it. To mobilize it and enjoy it means to see that in this unknowing, there is fun and enjoyment and learning, and it's something that is actually inspires life. I'll give one example of that. If there's a philosopher, Jacques Derrida, and Derrida very famously made a distinction between law and justice. And law, for him, is what's written down in courts, right? The law. I was at court the other day, a friend's going through a court thing. I went with them, and it was interesting watching it because they were talking about, obviously, previous cases. They have all of these things written down. That is the law. The books, the files, the documents, the institution of the court. That is the law. And what is justice? Justice is what the law at its best tries to be. Justice is what the law is aiming at. What brings the law into existence and what keeps it going. But here's the trick. The law is not justice, right? Every time the law is written, it's unjust in some way. That's why the law has to be dynamic and continues to be rewritten. But you have a respect for the law. Like this is the body of work that is attempted to be just, to express what justice looks like in a community. But it falls short. Sometimes terribly, sometimes in small ways. And so in a sense, there has to be a dynamism, right? So the law is not just. It never expresses justice. And the moment you think the law expresses justice, you fall into collapsing the paradox. You collapse the paradox, and therefore you're going to create very unjust laws. But on the other side, you cannot have the law without justice, because the law is what births justice is what births the desire to write the law. Justice is this, what Derrida calls the undeconstructible. So, this something that we have to presuppose, that is presupposed in the law. So in other words, the law doesn't get to justice. The law is immersed in justice and arises out of it and never quite grasps it. So if you get rid of justice, you collapse into a law of Machiavellian will. And like that has no connection with the kind of moral frame. Think about it like logic. You can argue logically, right? You can argue about logic, whether it exists, whether there's rationality, all of that. But in order to do so, you have to presuppose it. So you have to presuppose logic in order to argue for or against logic. You don't argue towards logic. The very argument presupposes logic, which means there is both certainty and uncertainty, absolutism and relativism, the sense of you are immersed in something which you cannot get to. That is what's called mobilizing and enjoying the transcendental longing, as you go, oh yeah, just like the law springs forth, religious traditions are ways of, they're like hymns of praise to this experience that cannot be grasped. They are like explosions of gratitude and wonder at what cannot be spoken. They are like, that's why it's kind of a theopoetics. This is the body that responds with joy to the, and that's what, by the way, the mystics did. What did they do? They turned unknowing into something positive. You know, it's not from unknowing to knowing. It's basically, I know I have to stop now. Lock the doors. Don't let them out. Right? But think about it like unraveling. You know, the first time you experience doubt about your political, cultural, or religious positions, right? You feel like you're unraveling. You go, I'm unraveling. I'm falling apart. But you're not unraveling. What you discover is you're raveling. Now, raveling means exactly the same as unraveling, right? To ravel also means to pull apart, but it doesn't have that negative right? You're not unraveling, you're raveling. You can revel in your raveling, enjoy it, right? And it will spark off art, poetry, music, gratitude, love. So that's the second one. And then the third one, which is the third one, first is you cultivate the transcendental longing. 2 is you enjoy it and you mobilize it. And then 3, I did have a third one. Always do 3s because it's like a big preaching thing. You have to make them start with the same letter as well. Let's see what I said. No, you have to pay me to hear the third one. No. Oh yes, and 3, to avoid the fall into either side. Now, for churches, the fall will not be into naturalism generally, but the danger of a community like this is the fall into idolatry, right? So the third is to avoid closing down the paradox of closing down the transcendental and the immanent, of closing down law and justice, absolutism and relativism into we have it. A community that can do that is a healthy and joyful and beautiful community. Can I end with a parable, actually? Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm not asking you. That's a rhetorical question, preacher. Just can I speak for another 3 days? Yeah. I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to try it. This is a parable that I haven't told for a long, long time, right? So I'm going to forget parts of it. I don't know if you've read my work. I use a lot of stories, whatever. But if I forget this one, some of you who I know my parables will be able to help me out. So this is a parable about this guy, very successful, doing this job. But his name is, what's his name? Seamus. His name is Seamus. No, you know why he's saying that's because all my characters are called Seamus. But actually, weirdly, this wasn't Seamus. This was somebody else. It was a really strange name. What was it? Anybody? Any ideas? What's that? Patrick. Yeah, I'll do Patrick was his name. He was a good Irish bloke. Very good Irish bloke. He was related to Seamus. That is true. That's where you went wrong. They're brothers, the relation brothers, Patrick, good Irish guy. He from the north of Ireland, and he was successful in his work, and his work was, what was his work? Anybody remember what he did, Patrick did? It was a bizarre thing. He was, what's that? Architect? What? Oh, say it again. Architect. I did say it. I thought you were there. He was an architect. I don't know if the Irish are very good at architecture. So he was a drunk architect. Yes, that's right. This made really creative buildings. He wasn't very good, but what he would do is he would drink his Bush Mills, oldest distillery in Ireland, from the north. He would drink his Bush Mills and he would create these fantastic buildings. They never stood up or anything. They were a disaster. But he was very set. People liked his work anyway. They kind of were blurry and weird looking. So Patrick, the architect, he was very happy in his job. But then he became increasingly dissatisfied. I remember that bit of the story. He becomes increasingly dissatisfied with his life. He's not happy with anything. He's got this longing, this yearning in his heart. And he decides, listen, I have got to do some spiritual discipline in order to try to find an answer to this. And so Patrick, the good Irish architect, he decides to do the spiritual practice of what is it? What did he do? It was something really strange. What was it? Anybody remember what Patrick did? Meditation? No, we can't meditate. Only when he got drunk, he would be like completely gone. It was something else. What was it? It was, what's that? Pilates. Thank you. It was Pilates. He was doing Pilates. But he was an Irish guy, and like me, doesn't actually quite know what a Pilates is. I don't know if is that like the plank in yoga, or is it kind of like, twerking to get your rear end looking tight? I don't know what it is. Pilates, but it's some sort of, and he did Pilates religiously. So he didn't really know what he was doing, but he would drink a bit, he'd go to his Pilates class, and he would do whatever a Pilates was. But this, weirdly, you wouldn't be surprised to hear this, but this did not give him spiritual enlightenment. No matter how many Pilates he did not achieve the Buddha enlightenment. So he thought, I need to join a religion. I need to join a religious group in order to try to find the answer. And so what he decides to, what's that? So people are saying things very low, as if I can hear, as if I'm standing right beside you. It's like, what was it? What? But yeah, please a little bit louder. Good grief. Well, I can't hear. I'm 45 now. But I know what a Buddhist is, so I can kind of do that. Irish Buddhism. Does he try that? No, it's something else. It's something a weirder kind of religion than Buddhism. Scientology. You know what? I knew you would say that. I could have guaranteed that. What I should do now is be a magician and go, look, Scientology. And it was, ironically, Scientology. Because he went to the Theater of Death, which is about psychiatry in LA. And he was like, these Scientologists know what they're talking about. So he got into L. Ron Hubbard. He got clear, went up to operating Thetan. Yes, I know about Scientology. Yeah. As an operating Thetan myself. He goes clear. He gets up there, spends all his money he made in architecture to do it. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. So he decides to go to the most intelligent person he knows, the wisest person that he could ever imagine to ask about the answer. So he goes to my wife, did you say? Did somebody say my wife? I'm actually not married, but let's go. If I married somebody, I would marry the most intelligent person around. So yeah, he goes to my hopefully future wife, who's out there somewhere, maybe in this room, I don't know. Goes to my future wife and says, listen, I have been caught up in all of this searching and seeking. I can't find the answer. I don't know what I'm doing. And my future wife, being the smart, intelligent, very beautiful, she was a model actually in her early days. It's funny, she did modeling, but she found it too facile. She wanted to do something deeper. So she went and studied meditation in Tibet, my imaginary future wife, and then, helped children. She did a lot of work with children, with poverty. She worked a lot in poverty, and then wrote a great novel. Anyway, and so she said, like, in my novel, I explore this. Perhaps, she says to Patrick, perhaps your desire and your longing and your yearning for the absolute is evidence that you're already caught up in the absolute. Your search for what you do not have is evidence that you have what you search for. And maybe that's what Matthew 7:7 means. It says, ask and you will receive, knock and the door will be opened, seek and you shall find. In the original Greek, it's not cause and effect. Knock and the door will be opened. Seek and you will find. Ask and you will receive. No, it's like heat and light. You better to be read. In seeking there is finding. In knocking the door opens. In asking there is receiving. In the search is the answer itself. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Cheers. Thank you.
Come to reconcile, come in like a child, holy night, whole light, our hopes and all our fears, met within your side, holy night, hallelujah. God is with us. God and men entwined, of earth and of divine, holy night, whole light, mending fractured earth, the soul now found its worth, holy night.
At this time, if you'd reach in the seat back in front of you, there are connection cards. This is the way that we identify first-time guests. We're just so grateful that you're here. If you write your name and your address, we'd like to send you just a little token of our appreciation. If this is your third, fourth, fifth, 100th time here, you can write your name on the card, and we can also pray for a prayer request if you write it on the back of your card. So we'll take a minute and fill these cards out at this time. And then at this time, we're going to collect an offering. There are two ways to give. One is at paradoxgiving.org, and the other is in the bucket that's being passed. You can also drop your connection card at this time. So we'll collect an offering at this time. And then will you please stand with us as we sing, Be Thou My Vision.
Lord of my heart, I'd be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best Lord, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my life. Riches I heap not, nor man's empty praise. Thou my inheritance, thou and always. Thou art the first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. My cynical heart has hardened my soul. Lord, give me eyes to see life as beautiful. Help me transcend my fears stubbornness, and by your compassion live a life of love and rest.
Will you bow your heads with me? Dear God, may we continue to live in the joy of the unknowing and the knowing, and in our doubts and our certainties. And may you give us this passion, this desire to keep searching for answers and to hold them loosely enough to live in that moment. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week when we start Proverbs. Thank you again to Peter Rollins for being with us here today, and we will see you guys next week.